In a world built on noise, Norton Bob left his mark in silence. He wasn't a president. He didn't lead wars. He didn't need to. Because when the heavy hitters of the Oakland Hells Angels spoke about him, they did so quietly, like you would about a ghost that earned your respect. He was an Oakland Hells Angel. Probably not heard of very much, if at all. He was a daredevil. He was a skydiver and a pilot. I don't remember him holding an office, but he did seem to have a lot of political power and sway up there in Oakland. Bob didn't ride like most bikers. He flew. A skydiver, a thrill chaser, and a man with a parachute in one hand and fate in the other. He carved his legend not through brutality, but through boldness. And yet, the end came not with fire, but with fog. He took off in a plane from California, refueled in Hawaii, and vanished somewhere over the Pacific. No requis. No answers. Just rumors. Was it a meth run? A mission? A suicide? No one knows. All that's left is a picture in the clubhouse, a few spoken memories, and one scene in Hell's Angels Forever where he wears a straw hat, smiles, and tells a story like none of it mattered. But it did. Because Norton Bob didn't go out in flames. He evaporated. Sometimes the loudest legends are the ones you never hear coming. In the Oakland chapter of the Hells Angels, respect isn't given. It's earned through scars, silence, and steel nerves. And yet, there's a name that gets spoken not with fear, but with something rare. Norton Bob. He didn't chase the spotlight or titles. He didn't need to. Because when the men who never bow nod in your direction, you don't need an introduction. David Ortega respected him. So did Animal. That alone says everything. I know he was real popular with everybody. I first heard about him from David Ortega. When David got back from San Quentin prison in the late 60s, early 70s, he had a handful of people he talked about. Robert Poland, Moldy Marvin, Norton Bob, and of course, we already knew Animal. David had a lot of respect for Norton Bob, and David didn't respect a lot of people. Animal also held him in high esteem, along with Cisco. He was really held in high regard. Bob didn't roll in like a wrecking ball. He glided, literally. He was a skydiver, the kind that doesn't just flirt with death, but slow dances with it at 13,000 feet. Part of a team trying to break world records. He wasn't riding for show. He was chasing adrenaline, defying gravity, and sometimes paying the price. He was a skydiver, part of a skydiving team. I think they held a world record at that particular point in time. One jump almost killed him. They called it the Roman candle, the moment when your parachute malfunctions and flames shoot upward instead of air. Most men panic. Bob didn't. He cut the chute, pulled the reserve, and crash-landed like a man trying to punch the earth back. He survived, but not clean. He had a problem with his parachute, described as a Roman candle. Anybody familiar with skydiving knows that term. When a deployment fails on a parachute. I was told I don't know if he got it open part of the way down. The story is very sketchy. I first heard it in the late 70s. But he landed, broke his back or a bunch of bones, and didn't jump much after that. Bob didn't dwell on luck. He wore that pain like metal, and his legacy lived not in stories, but in symbols. In the Oakland clubhouse, there's a photo that says more than 100 patches ever could. It shows Bob in free fall, parachute unfurling behind him, arms stretched like he's daring gravity to try again. At the Oakland clubhouse, there was a great picture of Norton Bob with a parachute, a bright orange parachute draped around him. He had a matching jumpsuit, like a jumping parachute suit, topped with a leather helmet that looked like a Russian tank helmet. It was a really strong picture, and it hung in the Oakland clubhouse as long as I can remember. Never saw it taken down. Some clubs post wanted posters, mugshots, or crime scene photos on their walls. The Angels posted Bob flying. What kind of man earns a place in that pantheon not for violence, but for vision? He never needed to brag. His story was written across the sky, in wind, in broken bones, in the flicker of orange silk snapping open above the clouds. For the men who watched him drop from heaven and land with a grin, that was all the gospel they ever needed. Norton Bob didn't die with a roar. He vanished. It began with a flight, not a jump, not a dive, but a mission. He took off from the Bay Area in a modified airplane headed for Australia. Stopped once in Hawaii to refuel. I know that on one of his adventures, he was trying to set some sort of aeronautical record. They left the Bay Area in a souped-up plane with big fuel tanks. They flew to Hawaii, fueled there, and then took off for Australia. After that, nothing. No radio calls, no signal. Just the open ocean and a sky full of silence. There were whispers, of course. Not long after they took off out of Hawaii, rumors started running wild. The Fed said it was a big meth run from Oakland to Hawaii to Australia, but it was never confirmed. Was he running drugs, chasing glory, escaping something no one else could see? What's known is, he was gone. And for those who rode with him, that mattered more than how or why. Cisco, the same man who once sat with Bob on camera, straw hat tilted, laughing about the day he joined the Angels, took a plane out over the Pacific. He got the latitude and longitude of the last radio contact, hired a plane, and flew out looking for debris or anything they could find. Finally, Cisco had the pilot bank in, and they threw a bunch of flowers on the water. That was Cisco's tribute to Norton Bob. No funeral, no grave, just Norton Bob written into outlaw history, not with a crash, but with a disappearance. A final act that felt more like a riddle than a tragedy. In Hell's Angels Forever, there's a short, almost forgettable moment where Bob talks about how he found the club. If you want to see more Norton Bob, go watch Hell's Angels Forever. He has a good interview. He wears a straw hat and I can't remember all the dialogue or where it's at in the movie, but it's pretty good. He comes on screen right after a little kid falls down while the kids are fighting, and he explains his life growing up and how he ran into his friends who turned out to be the Hell's Angels. But he is not remembered because he was killed, not because he ruled, but because he flew. Because he lived outside the lines. Because he earned the respect of men who respect almost nothing. Maybe he died on impact. Maybe he made it to shore. Maybe he became one with what he loved most, the open sky. But if you ask the men who knew him, he's still out there. Somewhere beyond the clouds. Still flying. Still silent.